So Doug, somebody writes in to ask, do you have any practical tips for how married couples should approach holidays with family who are not like-minded in the faith? You have these expectations that you need to all spend time together, but it can be a bit stifling. So how do you handle that? And also, how do you set boundaries for kids, like if you're bringing kids into that situation?
So this looks like a sleeper question, but it's actually a really, really important one. And it's this is one of my stock issues that I work through in pre-marriage counseling.
Okay.
And I'll say to the couple, because a lot of the couples that I do pre-marriage counseling for, they're from Moscow, and their folks on both sides are either in the region or in Moscow, and they are usually Christian families that are pretty tight. So this is a problem with families that aren't like-minded, but it's even more of a problem with families that are like-minded.
Right.
Right.
Because expectations are higher?
Expectations are higher, and the families are tighter. You know, they've been loving each other for 20 years.
Yeah.
And they're tight. Some families are tight and tangled. Some families are tight and loving. But the problem is created by the tightness. Okay. So what I counsel young couples to do is to remember that you are establishing a third family. You are not splitting the difference between two families. You are establishing a third family.
Okay.
All right. So the equation must be always there's three families involved now, not two families, because if you think of yourselves as just the kids who just happen to get married, then what's going to happen is that this newlywed couple and the young family are going to become the rope in the tug of war. I had noticed you were over at their house for dinner again.
Yeah.
You know, are you favoring them? And it's back and forth. And a man will leave his father and mother, cleave to his wife, and the two become one flesh. You're establishing a new household. And that means when Christmas time comes around, you're having to navigate three families, not two families. And you must insist on three.
Yeah.
Right?
And is there, I mean, in this dynamic, because this is actually, these kind of dynamics, it seems to me that your wife is more aware of or feels the pressure more, like it seems like it's easy for the husband to be rather clueless and just do as he's told during these kinds of things, but it's actually really important that he be the one who, because it's his name, it's his family, that he be the one to.
She's going to be picking up all the signals.
Yeah, and she's feeling the guilt.
She's feeling the guilt. Sometimes she's manufacturing it all by herself. Other times it's a combination, but the husband has to be the shield wall. He's got to be the fortress. He's got to be the one who said, all right, now we're gonna do Christmas Eve with you guys, we're gonna do Christmas Day ourselves, and we're gonna do the day after Christmas with you guys. Okay? If you don't want to be in the position of alternating Thanksgivings for the next 25 years and have your kids not know what it's like to have a Thanksgiving dinner in your own home, okay? Because that's not being loving, you're appeasing, and you don't want to be appeasing. So I would say to families that are facing this, the earlier you do this, the earlier you catch it, the better it will be. There might be some sparks at the beginning when you're establishing it, but you won't regret it. You just draw the lines clearly and don't withhold yourself. You know, honor your father and mother. You visit family and stuff, but you're doing it as a newly established household. You're no longer a dependent child.
Oh, go ahead.
There was one other thing embedded in the question is what do you do when grandma and grandpa are not Christians and they want the grandkids to spend a week with them, but they're not godly.
Yeah.
You know, R-rated movies, everything's just things are pretty sloppy.
Or maybe they're Christian, but a very different theological conviction.
That translates into how the household is run. Now, if the kids come back from grandma's after 3 days, having had a few too many pieces of candy, then it's quite right. Well, that's what grandmas are for. That's well within tolerances, right? But if your kids come back from a week at the grandparents' hellions, and you need a reign of terror to get things back into a more moral order. You just can't do that. And that means you have to have a straight up the middle conversation. Mom, Dad, we love you to bits, but the kids can't stay with you because you're not backing up. We're bringing up our kids in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, and you're not backing our play, right? We would love to be on the same page with you, but I would only do that sort of thing when it's really a moral order issue, and not we don't believe in sugar, or we don't believe in it.
Sure.
It ought not to be fussy little things.
Okay. How do you draw lines like that in such a way that eventually the grandparents or the in-laws, whoever, can begin to see the lines that you've drawn as actually a blessing to them? Because it seems like you're always causing tension, but it seems like if you're being faithful, at some point this becomes a gift back to them.
At some point, basically, the children are the scoreboard. Okay,
Yeah.
It's not like you've got your opinions and they've got their opinions, and who's to say what's right. If you're really bringing up your kids in a loving, careful, diligent way, it's going to register in the kids.
Yeah.
Right. So you're going to be faced with the prospect of an unbelieving grandpa saying, "I can't believe you spanked those kids. They're the best grandkids I've got."
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'll tell you why they're the best grandkids you've got is because we discipline, because we discipline them. But grandparents have a built-in desire to be proud of and invested in their grandkids. You're going into the whole thing with an advantage. Grandparents want to be proud of their kids. And then if you're bringing them up right and you give them a lot to be proud of, the grandparents at some point are going to say, we don't hold with your brand of Christianity, but I have to admit your kids are fantastic.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of that.